You absolutely cannot make this up for the Boston Bruins. Tonight's draft lottery has revealed the Boston Bruins are having a major change of plans in this year's NHL draft and free agency, as they have had the worst luck possible throughout this season. We're going to be breaking down what happened in tonight's draft lottery, as I'm sure a lot of you may already know. We have a lot to cover. The Bruins have a lot to change, and we're going to be breaking it all down here in this video, on this video here on the channel. Very quickly, before we jump into this, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. As you see there, we notice that just over 70% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot for all of your Boston Bruins news here throughout this offseason, and now that we have so much change of plans for the Boston Bruins, you're not going to want to miss it here. Be sure to hit the sub button. Join me here throughout the offseason. But let's jump straight in to our first screenshot here, which ultimately, as I'm sure you know, is the draft lottery results. The Bruins have fell 2 spots to the 7th overall pick. Formerly was going to be 5th, then dropped down to 6th after the Utah Hockey Club moved up, and now at 7th. The worst result the Bruins could have had was moved down to 7th, and of course we had to see it happen, just to be the cherry on top for this season. And the last time the Bruins' own pick was in the top 7, it was 2006 with Phil Kessel at number 5. But despite the lottery odds coming in, and despite what was a very confusing draft lottery, I think is a good way to put this, a good way to say this. The Islanders have won it with Utah moving up, giving the Bruins 2 bumps down, with a 3.5% chance for the New York Islanders to win that first overall pick, and 8.5 for the Bruins. Just goes to show that the luck was not there. We can talk about some interesting stuff after when it comes to, the Islanders potentially losing their All-Star game and them losing a lot of money with that franchise. But we'll talk about that at a later date, or leave it for the books, leave it for the comments to decide. But as I mentioned, the Bruins' luck, it was completely out. They had no more luck to spend during this season. Goes to show where they were in the end of the regular season, now going to where they were here with this draft lottery, 7th overall, dropping down 2. We knew before that they weren't going to get the first overall pick at the first time the draft lottery switched over when Utah moved up, and that alone right there, to me, revealed that the Bruins had a major change of plans coming. And now when we're looking at where we were, there was names like, Anton Frundell, James Hagens, Michael Misa, Porter Martone. Now all of those nearly seem out of the picture at this current Bruins spot. Some few people saying that, a trade could come down, something along the lines of that. I don't want to believe it just yet. I'm not counting it out. But when we're looking at this Bruins pick, they still have a lot of names that are very, very intriguing for the Bruins and where they are trying to aim to be next season, back in a playoff spot and down the middle as they look to bolster the centers on this group. Don Sweeney had a quote here about having a pick for in the top 10. Quotes about this, very interesting from this organization, especially Don Sweeney and Cam Neely, as they've had not very much success with this in the past. Don Sweeney here says, I think that the stakes are a little higher, and they should be. You're trying to evaluate players that are impacting your hockey club. You do find players that trickle down and impact later on as well, but I think you have to expect to hit your pick when you pick where you are, and that's what he had to say about having a top 10 pick here. Now, when we're looking at Don Sweeney's past, it's been pretty evident that he has not had the best draft history with this team, especially in, I'm not even going to go further on it, but the 3 picks back to back to back, which could have been a franchise-altering set of picks. We saw where that ended up. We know where that is now. That is ancient history, but when the Bruins are back in the spot, back with a 7th overall pick, there are still many names that are going to be on the table here. Many names that teams are going to want. Many names the Bruins should be looking at. Many that the Bruins may be a bit off the board for. And we're going to kind of break down here in this video, just to start off before we head to the draft on June 27th, I believe the date is. There's multiple options that the Bruins have. When it does come down to looking at the current NHL mock draft here from Tankathon, we see Matthew Schaefer at number 1, Michael Misa, Porter Martone, James Hagens, Anton Frundell, someone the Bruins were heavily invested on in this draft, according to reports. Caleb Denoyer, and the Bruins have Victor Eklund, left winger, at 7th overall. Now, behind him are Roger McQueen and Jake O'Brien, 2 very interesting players as well. We're looking at this now. Instead of this Denoyer, Frundell, Hagens, Martone area, unless the Bruins do decide to move up in a trade, which, as I mentioned, I'm not going to count out right now, but it certainly seems unlikely that the Bruins are going to have to make a big choice here. A center in Jake O'Brien, Victor Eklund, a very, very solid left winger, and Roger McQueen, who plays a little bit all over the place. A big boy, too, up on the forward side of things, that they're going to have to choose whether they want to, move down a bit, not necessarily a pick, but go off the board, or take a few notches down to go for Jake O'Brien, trading down, maybe trading up. they have quite a few picks that they're able to dangle in front of teams to, hey, we want to move up. You may want to move back a bit. We'll see what happens. But when you're looking at a guy like Jacob O'Brien, this is someone I want to touch on in this video, as he is the only center listed there, and we know that Roger McQueen can play a little bit everywhere. But Jacob O'Brien, 98 points, 66 games with Brantford here in this year, projected 9th overall to the Buffalo Sabres out of the OHL. When you're looking at his NHL percentage there on the right, he is one of the highest available in this first round, actually third that is available on Tankathon. So it goes to perspective and show that, he may be a little bit more NHL ready than some players, even though we may see a higher, skill level in specific other players. But Jake O'Brien, once again, has been a very solid player. Not the biggest goal scorer, 32 goals in 66 games, which is kind of crazy to say he's not the biggest goal scorer when those are still very, very good stats. But 98 points, 66 in 66 games really goes to show the play style he has. And when we're looking at Victor Eklund, we're looking at a guy like, not so much Roger McQueen due to his size, but Victor Eklund, a player like him and players like his play style are very plentiful in the Bruins organization right now, and the Bruins do have an excess of those players, and maybe some of those we will see traded here in this offseason, but a player like Victor Eklund, although he is very, very good, to me just doesn't seem like the right move for the Boston Bruins at this point, even though if we do draft him, still okay with the pick. It's one of those instances where he's a very good player, wouldn't mind having him, but there's many other that I think would suit the Bruins better at this very instance. But when you're looking at Roger McQueen, Jacob O'Brien, and Victor Eklund, those three are definitely going to put up a battle for the Bruins. And who says that, let's just say the Nashville Predators don't move down to take Victor Eklund or want to move down for a trade. There's options there that will become evident as we progress through the rest of the offseason, as we get rid of the playoffs soon enough, and when the draft comes into eyesight over the hill, that will be when we're starting to see serious moves, and draft night for the Bruins is going to be something very interesting. And I'm assuming that we're going to see a Don Sweeney, Cam Neely take a very big step in this year's draft to show the team, to show the fans, to show the organization that they're ready to get back to a playoff team. And we've seen that from them. We've heard that from them here so far since the media availability to end the year for the Boston Bruins. And it will just be a big thing to see if they actually act upon this. And we hope to say that will eventually happen. Now, Robert Chalmers here has this on X, putting this in the potential Bruins number 7 overall pick. So Caleb Donaire, Bradley Martin, Roger McQueen, Anton Frondell, Jake O'Brien, and Carter Bear. Now, I've spoken about Frondell, McQueen, and O'Brien there on this list right here, but one name above that, Caleb Denoyer, also will depend on whether or not the Flyers go out and get him out of Moncton. Center as well. Very interesting pick. Still a bit of a bigger guy, 6'2", 172, 84 points in 56 games in the queue. A decent NHL level there as well, 34.9. He's another guy that certainly seemed to be ready coming straight out of Moncton, and that would be something the Bruins are going to be looking for. They're looking to add to the center now. There are free agent options, but having a young guy that they can really work him into the system and make him a Bruin is something that the team hasn't had the opportunity to do too much lately in draft. So looking back at this, looking at the picks here that are potential options at number 7, I'm liking the list here, although we do have guys that still may be above that would be better. The Bruins have to take what they can get. They have to make the best out of this pick before things go a bit south. Now, we do have one more interesting kind of look here from X, from the Bruins podcast, which is Mike Sullivan's podcast there on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. But when we're looking here, the Bruins 7th overall pick, they have Jake O'Brien, which is, once again, the player that we've been speaking about here, mainly in this video, one that I like a lot. Caleb Denoyer at 6, and the same really top 7. And then when you go down to Roger McQueen, Victor Eklund at 9, which is another interesting option. So it does seem that they certainly have the same idea here, but it goes to show that there's so much variation when coming with this pick. When discussing this pick, and what really is the big thing is the top 5, 6 really are kind of locked in. So it will be upon the Bruins to really change the way that this draft has looked like so far, at least unless we see some other changes here in the offseason from other teams. The Bruins do have a nice few picks to be able to throw into assets. So whether they want to move up or down, it is a possibility. So let me know what you think here about this option that the Bruins have, these options, the 7th overall pick, and what do you think the Bruins are planning on doing now? We saw center was an option. Now that that's taken a little chunk out of it, we're kind of left right here in the dust. So let me know what you think in the comments below. That's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.